with children about Alex's age, at this point you can start with younger children. I generally recommend that 1 chip equals 1 point and 1 point only.
Okay.
So, but with children above the ages of 5, they kind of start to have a better grasp of numbers. You could maybe, depending on Alex's abilities, have like where white chips equaled 1 and maybe blue chips equaled 5.
Oh, okay.
So instead of having to hand out 5 chips, you could give him a blue chip, and that could be equal
I think you
to
would
5.
like that.
Okay, kind of maybe incorporate some math skills in there as well. Might be kind of a fun thing for the two of you to do together.
Okay.
But
So when I reward him, am I rewarding him one point at a time, or some things worth more?
some things are worth more, and we'll get into
Okay.
that. That's a very good question, and
Okay.
we'll definitely address that in just a second. Okay, so when you first are starting this up, you get home either tonight or tomorrow morning. It's best to start implementing this as soon as possible.
Okay.
So as soon as you can and feel like you have time, I want you to sit down with Alex and explain to him we're going to be using this new system, and that explain to him that's a reward system, and tell him that you think he works really hard and that you want to make sure he's getting extra rewards for his
Okay.
good behavior. Talk about it in positive terms like that. Don't say anything about not getting rewards or doing bad things, but always talk about good behavior, getting rewarded for good behavior.
Okay.
Be very excited about it in your voice
Okay.
and in your posture, and kind of help him buy into it
Okay.
in that way. That's really important, especially at the beginning. He's going to be a little confused and maybe not understand what's going on, so it's
Okay.
important to kind of help him see this is a fun thing, this is a good thing
Okay.
that's going on, kind of helps with that resistance
Yeah.
that might happen. So you're going to sit down and you're going to have a conversation with him about what the system is. Explain to him we're going to be using these poker chips, hold one up and show him what it looks like, what it feels like, and say these are going to be the rewards you're going to be getting for good behaviors. And then say every time you do a good behavior, you're gonna get chips, and then you're gonna say we're gonna put them in a container, and then together, you and he are going to construct a container of some sort, and that can either be a jar, it can be a box, whatever you think would be good for you guys to use. And it might be really fun to decorate it together,
Okay.
and to kind of maybe put pictures on it or decorate it with paint or whatever you two think would be fun and appropriate. It can have Alex's name on it, so that's his jar or
Okay.
his box, so he knows that's where his chips go.
Okay.
And so,
Is that pretty important to have?
yeah, it's not absolutely important, but it's just a fun thing for the two of you to do together,
Okay.
and kind of helps with the buy-in to this process on
Okay.
his part.
Sounds good.
So I'll leave that up to you, but I would recommend that. So after you get the container made, then you two are going to sit down and you're going to make a list of all the privileges that he wants to work for. So he's going to be exchanging these chips for privileges. Much like you
Okay.
would use money to buy something at the
Yep.
store, he's going to be using these chips to exchange them for things. And privileges can be things that he really enjoys doing, such as watching TV, listening to music, going outside and riding his bike. They can be things like going and getting ice cream, going to the park with you, things like that. Just whatever is motivating for him is something that is a privilege.
Okay.
So you and he are going to sit down and write out a list. And I would recommend trying to get about 15 things, at least
Okay.
10, preferably 15 things on your list that he wants to work for. Try to have roughly a third of these things be things that he would do on a daily basis. These can
Okay.
be things like playing with toys, watching TV, the things he does anyway that
Okay.
he can now work for, that he
Okay.
can exchange chips
So,
for.
can you not do these things without chips?
That's a really good question. I would recommend making sure there are things that, exactly right, that he wouldn't,
That he needs permission
that
to
he
do
needs
that?
permission to do.
Okay.
So say if he watches TV now, maybe he can get an extra half hour of TV time with his chips.
Okay.
Or maybe he can watch a show that he never gets to watch. It
Okay.
comes on at 8 o'clock and he
Yeah.
normally goes to bed, you know?
Okay.
Things like that can be, so kind of above and beyond what he does now? That was a really excellent question. I'm glad you brought that up. So make sure about a third of these things are, just kind of those daily privileges that he could get. He could get them every day, and it wouldn't be harmful to either you or him.
Okay.
Make sure about a third of them are kind of middle term privileges. So those are things like maybe going to the park, going and getting ice cream, staying the night at a friend's house, things like that. They're bigger than the daily privileges, but they're not like super big things. Because we're going to have a category for super big privileges. So they're kind of middle of the road, whatever you think is appropriate for that. And then the last third of the privileges, have those be big things that he can work for long term.
Okay.
So those are things like going to Schlitterbahn, maybe going to a movie, kind of those things he wouldn't be doing on a regular basis that are kind of big motivators that he wants to work for. And they don't have to be things that are expensive by any means, just kind of whatever works best for your family.
Okay.
So you and he are going to sit down, write out this list. You already have your container. You've already explained the process. You have your container. Write out your list of privileges.
Okay.
Next, you and he together are going to sit down and write out another list that is going to explain all the good behaviors that he's going to be working for, the things that he's going to be getting chips for.
Okay.
And these could be things like chores. They could be things like following directions the first time asked. They could be things like getting along with his little brother, stuff like that. Whatever you and he sit down and work out together. And
how do I phrase this? These are things he's good at, or how do I?
Okay, so that's a really good question. I would phrase them in saying these are good behaviors.
Okay.
These are things we want to work towards,
Okay.
or these are not work towards. These are the way we want to behave, the way things we want to do.
Yeah.
Kind of use it. Try to avoid negative language. Try to avoid saying don't do this, don't do this. Instead, phrase it in terms of do this, do this. Does that make sense?
So instead of saying like, if you don't bug me for 30 minutes, say if you play quietly.
Exactly. Yep, that is exactly right. Or don't yell at your little brother. That's not a good one. Maybe play nicely with your little brother.
Okay.
That would be. So they're positive things that he can actually do instead of negative things that he wouldn't be doing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So you and he are going to sit down and write out this list, and it's really up to you to decide how many things you would like to have on this list. If there's any particular areas where you and I had talked about at the beginning that he has a really hard time in the morning, getting up out of bed, listening to you kind of staying on task to get ready for school. So maybe those would be some particular areas that he could include in the list.
Okay.
So, getting out of bed when his alarm goes off or when you wake him up would be a good one. Brushing his teeth, be a good one. Sitting down and eating breakfast, be a good one. All these things, and you can break them up into little steps like that.
Okay.
Like each little step